Welcome to Behind the Data. I am Nisha McIntyre, Managing Director for Grenada Solutions, a Grenadian-based licensed marketing agent for Grenada Citizenship by Investment Program. In this series, I sit down with Thomas Anthony, the CEO of the Grenada Citizenship by Investment Unit, and together we look deeper at the figures he publishes in his quarterly infographic series, The CEO's Desk. Thanks again for agreeing to meet and discuss the behind the desk of the CEO. Now, a lot of people are usually concerned with the volume, and there have been quite a few statistics that we've seen in the industry, in the media, about the volume of applications that Grenada received this year over last year. But is this the most important metric for your team? And if not, what are the important KPIs that you guys look at?
So whilst the application submission is an important metric because the number of approvals is a consequence of the number of submission, which leads to the revenue generation at the end of the day. So whilst it's an important metric, it's not the most important metric for us. We believe that if we focus on our turnaround time, in other words, so our turnaround time, we also look at, important for us is the efficiency ratio. So how many applications have we received in any given period, and how many of those applications have we processed in that same period? And those two metrics are more important to us than the number of applications submitted. We believe that if we're efficient, that will lead to more people coming to the program.
Definitely. I mean, the numbers that you posted showed a marked difference between the processing done month on month, 2022 to 2023. Tell me, what are some of the initiatives that the unit has done to sort of increase the efficiency while dealing with these increasing numbers?
Yes, and for sure, Nisha, we have seen in the last, let's say, 4 months of this year, the past 4 months of this year, a marked increase in the daily submission of applications, whilst we were still trying to treat with a serious backlog we inherited from 2022, right? So we did a number of things. We increased our staff count, so added to our human resource capacity. We also made some changes as it relates to some of the items on our processing list that you would not see as a stakeholder.
Okay.
So for example, some of the parts of the process that our internal operations administrators had to do, we found were redundant. And so we ended some of those. We changed some of them to improve them. And we digitized, as you would have noticed. So the certification process, for example, is a totally digitized process that goes from us to the Prime Minister and back to us. So that improves that portion of the process. Also, we would have employed some technology. So Sonova, our provider, would have improved the process as it relates to the submission of applications by agents and the speed with which we get those applications and the speed with which we have submission between ourselves, internally between our operations administrators and our DD providers. But I think the most important difference is that we did some work with FIU to make that process more efficient. And so we're seeing more frequently reports coming from the FIU.
So there are two things that stood out to me right away. You mentioned some improvements with certification and also with FIU. Just tell us a little bit of how the process slightly differed before with the certification process in terms of what is happening now, because you mentioned now it goes from the unit to the Prime Minister and back to the What elements
Digitally.
digitally?
Yeah. So before, the process was actually preparing a certificate, hard copy, and having that hand delivered with what's called a PMO pack. So all of the uh, required documents for the Prime Minister's office in order to determine whether this certificate should be signed um, for by the Prime Minister for this new citizen. And, and that pack had to be reviewed by individuals within the Prime Minister's office, of course, before it gets to him. You know? So you can see that that could take some time. The PMO pack has been largely removed, and we now submit the certificate along with the submission for Cabinet's consideration. So when we submit the applications which would have been adjudicated by the committee to Cabinet, along with that submission goes the certificates, so that should they be approved by Cabinet, Prime Minister can then sign the certificates around the same time.
Got it.
You would have seen that recently we made some changes in terms of the checklist and our certification standard, publishing our new certification standard. We believe that this alone will lead to some improvements in our efficiency. By that I mean, largely, quite a bit of the applications coming in or came in before the 16th of October when this new policy took effect, had deficiencies in the documentation, right? And so the operators had to spend time chasing after agents, sometimes for months. So an application could be on hold for several months while we wait for the agent to bring us or to provide or to submit the missing documents, right? But it takes time away from the operator focusing on other important tasks to continuously follow with these agents. And so what this new policy will do for us is to move the deficiency applications back to the agent for the deficiency to be cured, and then it comes back to us. So it relieves our operators from that onerous task of chasing after agents for documents and applications. What it also means is that when we get an application, we can immediately treat with it in terms of sending it off to international DD providers as well as our local DD agency.
So I guess it allows you to focus on the applications that are ready to go.
Precisely.
Got it.
Absolutely.
Well, that's an improvement that we look forward to actually having real impact in terms of the movement of the applications throughout the process. That being said, thank you again for clearing up how your team is continuing to improve its efficiency.
Sure.
I know lots of us in the industry look forward to the improvement going from one level to the next. Thank you, Thomas, again for the insight that you shared about your team's work toward improving its efficiency ratio. I think it's fair to say that all of us in the industry really do hope that you improve and that you attain your goal of continuously improving that. Now, there was another area on the data sheet that I wanted to kind of dig into, and this was a comparison between the NTF option and the real estate option. Now, historically, Grenada's National Transformation Fund option used to outperform the real estate option. That changed significantly following the introduction of the 220,000 real estate price point in 2019. However, in the data that you presented, we noticed that the NTF is sort of changing and seems to be rebounding, with the figures starting to increase in 2022 and again in 2023. What's happening? Do you guys have any idea the reason behind the change?
Well, that's the result of deliberate effort on the part of the committee and management. So more specifically, having a promotional agreement signed with marketing agents where the commission increases in a tiered approach based on the total submission over a 1 year period. Yes. The second thing is that some of our marketing agents agreed on approach by the committee and management to assign some of their applications, although they are developers in the market. They agreed to assigning some of their applications to Section 10, the National Transformation Fund category of investors. And so, to that end, one of our developers is the biggest contributor to the National Transformation Fund option in 2023. So, those two reasons are why we're seeing a rebound in the National Transformation Fund.
So it's an intentional movement.
Intentional.
Okay. My other question, I guess, was whether or not the availability of inventory, valuable inventory within the local landscape, had anything to do with that as well. I appreciate your thoughts on that.
Well, I think we can agree that Six Senses and Intercontinental, in the person of Mohammed and his team, are prolific in their marketing outreach, their marketing program. And so there was an uplift from the efforts on the part of AKT's team in various source markets in terms of the recognition of the Grenada CBI program. And so there was some leakage, right, from those who may not have necessarily wanted the real estate option, but would have heard about Grenada through that effort and decided that they would do the National Transformation Fund option.
I mean, the question I was going to ask is whether or not there's going to be any movement to try to get greater inventory in real estate onto the market.
Yes.
Or will the opportunity be used to sort of milk the NTF option a little bit and have it grow somewhat before reintroducing additional offerings into the real estate?
No, we are not going to have an intentional effort to keep the real estate inventory low just to fuel the National Transformation Fund option. As a matter of fact, it is our hope that the party who is now sitting down with government regarding the Kawanabe project will be able to make an announcement at the upcoming Henley & Partners event in Dubai, 8th to 10th of November. So that would mean, if they're able to do that, that would mean that there'll be a signed agreement between government and this partner who is now at the table. And so that will bring more inventory to the real estate option.
I think as a marketing agent, I'm really stoked to hear that. It's always good to have a variety of different offerings on the marketplace, and people have been asking for additional inventory.
Yes.
Now, on a personal side, in 2019, we had the 220K option introduced underneath your watch, correctly?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, the first two projects to have been approved through that option, offered shares in the marketplace, built through the funds from that option, are about to open. You mentioned them yourself, Beach House and Six Senses. How does that make you feel personally to have been here when that was amended, and now to actually see the fruits of that amendment taking fruition?
Well, I feel vindicated for having recommended to government that we consider the price. I don't want to say cut, but price adjustment.
There you go.
I think is a good word. I recall that when we first made the suggestion to government, just before that, the Prime Minister had made public statements about not considering any price cut, right? And then here I am going to the Prime Minister recommending that the price be
Very
um,
bold.
yes. But we believed at the time, and I still believe now, that it was important for the program to be able to compete with the other CBI programs in the Caribbean, right? We were way outside the price point in that St. Kitts and Antigua were at $200,000. Dominica, I believe, was just below that, and we were at $350,000. And it really, in order for us to attract, so that too, going back to your previous point, was one of the reasons why the National Transformation Fund was so attractive, right? Because of the price differential. And Grenada was not really seen to a great extent as a good real estate option aside from the Koana Bay project, right? And so in order to fuel that sector, to be able to increase the room count, and then the resulting airlift into the program as we're trying to build out the tourism product, it was important to have a more competitive price point to attract more real estate investors to Grenada. And it gives me great joy to be at the end point, so at the beginning and now at the end point, particularly for the Six Senses and the Beach House project, to be involved with the project again in this capacity, to see that the vision is being realized. Now, it was not mine alone, but I did play a role in that happening at that time.
How do you see this impacting not just Grenada's economy, but also the prospect for future investors in terms of the way it legitimizes the real estate component of Grenada's program?
Just having a national transformation fund, or what many call a contribution to government, makes it look more like a passport for sale program, right? And we are not a passport for sale program. We have a program where we're deliberately targeting certain sectors. So right now it's the real estate sector, yes, as tourism is the biggest contributor to GDP. And Grenada needs more hotel rooms, all right, to attract more people to the country, to be able to negotiate with airlines to have more airlift coming into the country as a result of your increased room count. The next sector that I will personally be recommending to, well, not a particular sector, but one of the things I'll be recommending to government is that we look at the cottage industries and try to find ways, either through the National Transformation Fund, funneling up to some of these small and micro businesses to try and increase their capacity, to grow them so that we're growing our revenue base, right? Diversifying the economy, or through design of a particular fund, a specific fund, to treat with providing capital and other resources to these cottage industries so that they can be bigger contributors to the revenue base.
I'm sure the additional options would be most appreciated. I've seen it work well in your home country, in Antigua, right? And I'm sure that Grenada stands to benefit significantly from altered options that individuals in the investment migration industry might buy into. The last area that I want to touch on, and you were very coy in your report with that data, is
Sure.
revenue. Right? Everybody likes to study the money.
Yes.
No, you were very clear in saying that the units, I think, you guys right now have achieved about 10% more in terms of revenue.
Now. As of September, it was 10%.
As of the time you put out that sheet, it was 10% greater than what you budgeted for 2023. Are we going to get any indication of what that baseline figure was?
Yeah, you've been pressing me on this one, and I've been thinking about it. I'm not sure I want to reveal that number.
Well, figure aside, I'm not even going to linger to be embarrassed publicly. But tell us what does this really mean in a real sense for Grenada, being able to earn significantly more than its anticipated earning from the industry? I know historically the CDI has been funneled into separate development industries in Grenada, and that continues to this day. So having a greater pool to choose from, how do you see that really impacting Grenada in terms of its own development, and how do you intend as a unit to also benefit from the increased revenue?
Okay, so I'll tackle the last item first. So benefit, we're hoping to get new gigs, a better space from which to work and to operate. From a country perspective, of course, it gives the country more money to treat with debt reduction, as well as much needed infrastructure development. So quite a bit of the funds going through the National Transformation Fund has been used for infrastructure development. But I won't give you a number, but what I will say to you is that the revenue this year, if you were to add the revenue from previous years, excluding 22, the revenue this year alone amounts to more than that number.
Okay, well there we go. We have starting points.
Yes.
You know, I'm going to be home with my
I
figures,
know, I absolutely know.
doing the analysis to see side by side what does that
Absolutely.
figure look like.
So
Okay.
it's a significant number. It represents 25% of collected revenue so far, year to date, for the government, or
Another benchmark.
46% of the non-tax revenue for the government. So nearly 50% of non-tax revenue. And as I said, 25% of total revenue for the year. So you're a smart
So
girl,
I-
I'm sure you'll figure it.
Yeah, statistics will be looking at me. Finance will see me digging through the books to try to figure out what's going on there. But I
But
mean,
it's a significant number. It's a number that prior to February 2022, I think we couldn't even imagine that could happen in a year.
I'm sure all of us in the industry and all of us Grenadians are really proud to see the program perform in the manner that it has. Because when it performs, Grenada performs.
Exactly.
And as a Grenadian, I personally feel really proud about that. So thank you and your team for the work that you guys are doing. What can we look forward in the next report? I mean, this is going to be an ongoing thing, as you've mentioned.
Yes.
Is it going to keep the same format, or are you going to change things up a little bit with us every time?
I think I'll keep the same format, but the information I provide may be a little bit different. I quite like the way it's presented, and I want to thank the individual who helped me to put that together. It was really good work. But I don't want to change it too much because I want people to be able to, as we move into the future, make comparisons, right? And so it's important that it's similar, but certainly try to improve, the data that we provide.
For that.
So over the next quarter, it is our intention to, by the end of the year, would have exceeded the annual target this year by at least 30%. So we were 10% as at the end of September, and our target is to end the year with 30% or more above that annual target.
Well, I hope you guys are able to achieve that goal. And I hope that the next time we have this, that your efficiency ratio will have improved even better.
It will.
And this has been Behind the Data with My Grenada Solutions, licensed marketing agent for Grenada's Citizenship by Investment program.